Facebook, good morning. How are you? Nice to see you. Happy Sunday. I'm just scrolling through the comments here on the old Facebook page, and it appears that a majority of the 4 million people who are regular visitors to this little page want me to run for the president of the United States. I'm flattered, as I have been over the last year by the suggestion, but I just have to take a quick moment before we jump into another short story here on the way I heard it. A quick moment to tell you that while I love our country very, very much, and while I believe I would be an excellent and interesting candidate, I'd be a terrible president. You got to know that, right? I can barely keep a TV show on the air, much less a country united. But I understand your frustration. I really do. I was watching the local and the national news moments ago, and I had to turn it off. I'm not even sure I'm going to watch the debate tonight. I'm going to try. I'm going to try because it's hard to turn away from it. But man, right? I get it. The country needs we need a reset button. We need a reboot. We need something. Got me thinking about one of the stories I wrote a few months ago. This is a story of reinvention. A company got itself turned around in a surprising way. Who knows? If a company can do that, maybe a country can do that. Maybe a party can do that. Maybe a campaign can do that. Maybe not. I don't know. I do know that the way I heard it is coming back. Saints be praised. I've been writing for the last couple of days. I have a stack of stories now. I like to get ahead of the curve a little bit, so somewhere toward the end of October, we'll be back on iTunes and Stitcher and Google and all the other places. In the meantime, I'll read you some oldies but goodies from the vault, and hopefully we can enjoy a civilized cup of coffee together as our political system goes up in flames and we look back over our shoulders with hope, optimism, great trepidation, and a touch of ennui. But not despair, never despair. All right, here it is. Excuse me for 1 second. As a rule, and I don't have many, but as a rule, a man should never be upstaged by a gourd when he's reading stories on the Facebooks. An incredible reinvention. Ready? Bob was confused. In his office sat a man named Joe with a product that cleaned wallpaper. Joe wanted to advertise his product on Bob's show, but Joe had no money to pay for a commercial. Moreover, Joe didn't seem to understand that Bob's audience was comprised mostly of 7-year-old kids. So Bob's confusion was completely understandable. Even if you could afford to advertise on my show, said Bob, why would you want to? Why would a kid want wallpaper cleaner? These were all fair questions, posed with a measure of incredulity entirely appropriate for the moment at hand, because not only did Joe have no advertising budget, he wanted Bob himself to actually demonstrate the product on television in exchange for a tiny percentage of future sales. It was, without question, the craziest pitch Bob had ever heard. So, why did Bob ultimately agree to Joe's proposal? The answer starts a generation earlier, back when everybody's home was heated with coal. Remember that scene from A Christmas Story when the old man is downstairs cursing at the furnace while Ralphie and his brother watched thick black smoke billow out of the vent and up the kitchen wall? Remember those smudges all over the wallpaper? That was the price we all paid for staying warm in the winter. Dirty wallpaper. From Main Street to Wall Street, wherever there was wallpaper, long, dark ribbons of soot arced up from the floorboards to the ceiling, creating bold new patterns on otherwise tasteful designs. The soot was simply impossible to remove without destroying the paper underneath. But Cleo McVicker, he claimed to have a revolutionary solution, and he was on the verge of selling 15,000 cases of McVicker's wallpaper cleaner to the Kroger Corporation. But the Kroger executives were skeptical. How could such a little soap company deliver on such a massive order so quickly? So, to put their minds at ease, Clio agreed to pay Kroger a $5,000 penalty if he missed the deadline by a single day. So Kroger placed the order, and Clio was ecstatic. There was just one small issue. That revolutionary wallpaper cleaner that Clio agreed to deliver, that didn't exist. Basically, Clio sold a product before he invented it, which is a great way to keep things exciting. In today's money, though, $5,000 is more like $100,000, way more than Clio could afford to lose. So, with the clock ticking, Clio began experimenting with dozens of concoctions from countless chemical combinations until he finally hit upon the magic recipe. A thick white paste that removed the soot from the walls without leaving a residue or tearing the paper. Clio made the deadline, barely, and before long, McVicker's wallpaper cleaner was available in stores from coast to coast. But of course, in business and in life, the winds of fortune blow in all directions. Not long after Clio struck it rich, natural gas came along. That meant no more soot. And then came vinyl wallpaper. That meant no more need for revolutionary wallpaper cleaners. And then came a tragic plane crash, and that meant no more Clio McVicker. So, what do you do with a leaderless company that sells a product that nobody needs? That was the question now facing Clio's son, Joe, the aforementioned young man who suddenly found himself in charge of his late father's company. The same Joe who was now trying to persuade one of America's most trusted TV personalities to personally demonstrate an obsolete cleaning product to a national audience of children in exchange for 2% of future sales. As we know, Bob eventually said yes, and it's a good thing he did. Before long, the same product that had been sitting on the shelf at 35 cents a pound was flying off of the shelves at $1.50 a pound. Why? Partly because they changed the packaging, partly because they changed the color, and partly because they changed the odor. But mostly, it was because they changed the name. Joe saw his dad's product for what it really was. Anyway, that's how Bob Keeshan made millions and millions of dollars. He played with a cleaning product on television as millions of kids watched in wonder. And that's how Joe McVicker wound up selling 1 billion cans of his dad's wallpaper cleaner by putting it in the hands of the one and only Captain Kangaroo and calling it something a nation of children might actually enjoy playing with. Play-Doh. Anyway, that's the way I heard it. There's a metaphor in there, right, for what's going on right now? Reinvention, packaging, hope, redemption, etc., etc. The way I heard it is coming back, as I mentioned. If you haven't subscribed, would you? You go to micro.com/podcast, and then you hit the subscribe button. And then all is right with the world, with the exception of everything that's wrong with it. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Good luck with the debate tonight.